You could probably already tell by the title of this podcast, but just in case, a heads up. Adult language will definitely be making an appearance. So if you're at work, around the kids, or just in front of some judgy pets, you might want to grab some headphones. Here we go. Hey, it's Leslie, and welcome to My Effing Desk. So glad you're joining us again. We've got some listeners from a few more countries to add to the list. We're up to 11 different countries now, and I've picked out the country that I'm going to say hello in their language. If you caught the last episode, episode 7, I started a new tradition of saying hello in each of the countries' languages of wherever we've got listeners. So for this episode, I chose Singapore. Now, one of the several languages that's spoken in Singapore is English. It's actually really common, but I felt like that would be kind of cheating. So I'm going to go with Malay. And hello in Malay sounds something like apa khabar, I think. Apa khabar. Ooh. I think it also means like, what's up? There we go. Spanish-speaking countries, I'm still looking in your direction. Where are you? Throw a girl a bone here, all right? Come on. Anyway, I have gotten an email that I want to share with you about someone looking for some advice, and I think that they are probably not alone. I'm not going to share the name. They wanted me to keep it private, but here's what they had to say. I have to level with you, and perhaps I'm feeling bold about asking after a glass of wine, but I have been keeping a regular-ish journal since the 3rd grade, and I used to derive great pleasure from writing. But since the pandemic began, I can't find the will to do anything other than watch TV. I didn't even watch TV before the pandemic, and now it's all I do. How do you continue writing in the midst of this? How can you concentrate long enough to compose a coherent thought on the page? I seriously admire your ability to do so. Any insight would be greatly appreciated. I empathized with this person so much because I think that a lot of people are going through it, and so many people are just trying to survive this crazy time and not even thinking about doing something extra like writing or creating or painting or dancing or sort of all those things that feel like you have to be really in a healthy mental state to get there. We're going to talk about that more with today's guest, so stay tuned for that. But here's what I told this person. I actually went through a really similar state of mind this summer, the spring and summer when all of this was starting, and it lasted for a while. And it kind of threw me for a loop because I tend to have high functioning anxiety to where even if I'm feeling uncomfortable or nervous or depressed, I can usually just power through it. But I couldn't do that this time. I have a monthly newsletter that I put out on my writer website, lesliegar.com, if you're interested. It's just pure fun. I share a lot of humor and I write a little funny piece each time. And I sat down in the summer to try and write the piece for that month's newsletter, and I could not do it. And I had been putting it off for, I don't know, days, if not weeks. I mean, it was hard to write anyway, but to try to be funny when nothing felt funny at that time, it was just impossible. And so when I came to that realization that I could not physically write right then, it was not going to happen. I was in such a fight or flight state of mind. And at the bottom of, that pyramid, the hierarchy of needs, where you've got like food and shelter at the bottom and safety, and then kind of going back up to the top is where you find these self-actualization elements. I looked at that and thought, yeah, I'm down at the bottom. There's no way I can create right now. There's no way I can be funny. And I just gave myself permission and said, you don't have to do this right now. You don't have to do it ever again if you don't want to. And that was the first step, letting myself off the hook. It felt like such a relief just to stop, close up my computer, go inside, and I don't know, I probably watched TV or something, just like this person that wrote. When I finally felt like I could do a little bit of something, maybe after a few weeks, I started doing morning pages from The Artist's Way. Again, that's something I feel like I talk about so many episodes, but it had a great impact on my life, not only when I did it, but the tools are something that I continue to use. So just writing 3 pages, total stream of conscious every morning, or as much as I could. And that kind of became an outlet for my fears, my anger, my boredom, whatever was coming up. You're not allowed to judge yourself on these. You're not allowed to share them with anyone. It's just an outlet to get everything out. And around that same time, I started moving my body more because I know that for me, that's what really helps me feel good. As a dancer, I need to get my heart rate up most days of the week. So at first I was just walking around the neighborhood with my husband. And then I started doing online workout classes, which helped so much. And besides that, I didn't do anything I didn't want to do as far as creativity. I mean, I was still having to do laundry and break up fights between kids and things, but I just babied myself. I kept thinking that, like, I'm just going to baby myself. And I would ask myself, all right, what do you want to do now? I want to watch Great British Baking Show. Okay, we're going to go watch Great British Baking Show. And so that's what I did for months. And it was hard to not create in that time because I'm happiest when I'm creating, but it was so much better than if I had just tried to push through. Finally, after doing all this, really self-care is what it was, I started getting little inklings of things that sounded interesting. And one of the things was actually this podcast. I started thinking about it more. I started researching it a little bit. I started writing a little more. I took a writing class. I started playing around with my writing, trying to write fiction, which was something I'd never done before. I tend to write essays and humor and satire and things like that. So I just played around with writing some fiction. And as soon as it felt like an obligation, something that I had to do or that I was kind of dreading, I stopped and I moved on to something else. In that humor writing class, I got some encouragement from the teacher after sharing a piece that we had to write in the class, and she really liked it and thought it was really funny and that I should try and submit it somewhere. The mistake that I made was submitting it, getting excited and submitting it right away and getting rejected, like I think from 5 different publications, which is totally normal, happens all the time. But I was not in the place yet to put my work out there. And I did it way, way too soon. So I had to kind of go back into my shell again, regroup. But eventually I was ready to come back out of my shell, be a little bit more careful about who I shared my work with. And once I got over that, I really hit the ground running, and I've been running ever since and feeling, for the most part, pretty good about it and ready to create and excited to create again. But I know that I could not have gotten to that point if I hadn't given myself permission back in the spring and the summer to lay off, to take that time that I needed and to just survive. So if you're in a similar position to the person that wrote me, try giving yourself permission for whatever it is that you need. If it's more of a fear that's taking over and creating a resistance to you diving into a project, then you might need a little kick in the seat. Feel free to email me and I can give you that. myeffingdeskpodcast@gmail.com. But if you need some of that babying that I suggested to this person and that I took for myself, do your best to give yourself that as much as you can, as much as is realistic. Don't feel like you have to do anything until you're ready, until there's something in you telling you that you want to create. Take care of yourself. Do whatever it is that sounds good to you. And when those little inklings start coming back again, and don't worry, they will come back. Follow those inklings and see where they take you. The timing for my next guest could not have been more perfect with this topic that came up. Monica Caivano is right there with all of us, trying to survive crazy pandemic corona times and running a nonprofit in the middle of it. She and her partner, Gustavo Simpli, started Esquina Tango here in Austin in 2006 and transformed it into a jewel in East Austin, a vibrant cultural center that has tango classes and Spanish classes and live music events and samba and merengue and all sorts of things. It's an incredible place. Monica is someone who doesn't know what imposter syndrome is. And I mean that very literally, as you're going to find out in our interview. She and Gustavo and my husband, Claudio, are all from Buenos Aires, Argentina. And if you know anything about the stereotype that goes with people from Argentina, fairly or not, they tend to be categorized as kind of knowing it all, being very confident, very sure of themselves. Welcome to My Effing Desk, Monica Caivano. Welcome, Monica, to My Effing Desk. Monica and I have known each other for, I was trying to remember to get ready for this, I think like 16 years or so. It's been a long time.
I mean, I believe you met your husband at one of Gustavo's parties.
Yeah, one of the asados.
At asado, or I don't remember, but yes.
Yeah, it's been a long time. Y'all have a reputation for that, for putting together all sorts of love matches.
Yeah, I always say, like, if you meet through me or through us, share with the world. If things don't work out, you don't have to share.
Right.
We are not liable for what happened after, but I'm very happy when people connect.
Yeah. Just share the success stories. That's it. Something I like to start off by asking is if creativity was always a part of your life, or did it kind of come about later? How did that work for you?
Well, the truth is that creativity is part of all of our lives.
Yeah. So true. I love it.
So I don't think that I was special that way. There was a recording of me when I was, in elementary school sometime. Like, what do you want to do when you grow up? So my brother said like 1,001 things. Like, I want to be an astronaut and a firefighter. And he wanted to be all the things. And all I said was, I want to be a clown and work at a theater. So apparently I said that. And when I saw that as an adult, I was like, that's why, like, I feel like I've always been very comfortable with myself, because I basically was very lucky from little that I knew what I was passionate about. And I since I have memory, I always wanted to take just all sort of dance classes and theater and mime and juggling, like anything that was related to expression, expression through the body and emotions. And one of my theater teachers once said that I had a beautiful tool, that I know how to use my instrument. So I feel like from when I was little, my instrument was my body, and I was very lucky to learn to use it and enjoy it and share it. So
that was always in the cards for you. I feel like it would have been strange for you to go the other way and become like, go in the corporate world or something. That doesn't seem like it would have worked.
No, somehow, I remember even in high school, I knew I was going to study theater. Like I always knew. And as an adult, then I discovered how lucky I was to know, because I know that can be a struggle for a lot of people knowing what their passion is. And I knew what it was. And my parents, even though they both study computer science, since the time where computers were a big room and that was their profession, they were complete humans. We all have all our sides, whether, the creative and the other, whatever other side you call it. So my parents were always connected with their artistic side, and they always supported us. They always let us discover what we wanted to do. And, that's key, because, you need that support to feel okay about what you're deciding to do in your life.
Yeah, definitely. And so they brought you here when you were a teenager.
Mm-hmm, they did.
From Argentina.
They told me they didn't go like, we're going. They let me choose in more or less, like I felt I still needed their guidance. I felt I want to be close to them. I feel the same way at 44. So not much has changed.
Right.
I love being close to my family. So even though it was really a very hard move for me, I did make that conscious decision.
What was it like? Did you come in your senior year, or had you already graduated? How was that?
It was super hard. It was a big soap opera. I cried the whole flight here. I left my first boyfriend, the first love of my life, and all my childhood friends and everything I knew. Oh yes, it was very emotional. When I got here, I was not really open yet. I was like, I'm just coming and then I'll go back and then my life will continue. And so it was a hard move at the beginning.
Transition. Yeah. And then you're still here. You made it.
It's funny because when I moved here, I thought that I was going to put pause in my life while I was here, and then I was going to go back and keep living my life. But then you find out that your life keeps going and you leave.
Yep.
And and their life would have been very different. I know that I would have done something artistic back home as well, just very different. But I still would have continued my calling there. But here, the rich thing about being in Austin, particularly, is very rich as far as cultural wise, meeting people from everywhere and just kind of learning to appreciate a lot of different cultures.
I think that's so true. There's not very many people that are from Austin. And so having people from all over coming together, and it's sort of everybody's home because it's no one's original home. Mm-hmm. It's definitely unique in that way.
Yeah. And then I feel like people that are from here, from the United States, there's a whole community of people that are really interested in learning about other cultures and your culture. And, I want to learn how to drink mate. And what do you do with this? And I feel it's so cool. we have these judgmental, like ideas of different places when we haven't been there yet, and everybody has their opinions. So actually I found that people here, there's a lot, super open people, as well as there's a lot of Latin Americans that are not super open. I mean,
there's everything.
There's everything, like, so sometimes you share the language, but you don't share the interest. And sometimes you don't share the language, but you share the interest. It does open your mind to travel and live in other places.
Is that sort of how Esquina came up, through that interest in the culture by people from here? And
yeah, pretty much. It was like kind of one thing led to the other. I remember when I was in college, I did say that without thinking about it, I was saying like, oh, one day I want to have I want to build the space and the place. And I'm much more of a thing of like the things built organically in my life, which my dad used to get angry at because he wanted me to work more on like goals and all that stuff.
Yeah.
Being the artist I am. But Esquina came because, I was already a tango teacher and trying to open my own space and, kind of getting independent from the dance studios with Gustavo at that time. When we were together, it was kind of like finding a space to kind of do our own thing. And honestly, it was kind of one thing led to the other, like our interests and then other people's interests that came to Esquina too. Like Gustavo started teaching the Spanish conversational class because people were wanting to practice before going to Argentina. And then we both love Brazilian culture. And then there was samba. And then it started kind of like becoming bigger than just, we're just going to teach tango.
And it developed into this whole thing because y'all have the tango classes and then these events with musicians under normal circumstances, right? Not in Corona world. We'll get to that in a minute though. And the Spanish classes and all of these, I mean, it is truly a cultural center. It's not one thing in particular.
Yeah. And in Argentina, the cultural centers are a little bit more common than here, I feel, which is like a meeting place. And, we develop as a nonprofit. Unfortunately, I think also because of my own interest, even when I got out of college, I pretty much only have worked with nonprofits. Like all my experience was with nonprofits. So that when you open Esquina, I was very naturally to think about the nonprofit because something that was mission driven, that we could actually make a positive impact in the community and make dance something that is more, not just how we learn a step, but it's kind of like a way of living. And you connect it with the music, with the language. We even show the movies. We have asados and things that people are like just released about the whole communal experience. And it has kind of become bigger than we thought at the beginning. And it keeps growing in a way. Even with the Corona thing, the mission of it, I feel like is stronger now, even though the activities has changed, mutated, and it's hard. But what we do is all about wellness. No matter where you put it, is giving people wellness for their mind and for their body. So very strongly say that we're an essential service.
I think it's totally true. Tell everyone what y'all have done, because it was so inventive, the way that you got around this idea of having to shut everything down.
So we first closed down like everybody else, but we immediately started the online classes the next week. We started salsa aerobics, and then we did online classes every day of the week by donation only. Because at the beginning it was like, what am I doing? Do I have a job? But then I was like, actually, we have a more important job. Not only keeping the nonprofit alive, which is an important job, but the other one is like keeping people on the positive and moving and kind of connected, helping people not feel isolated and keeping the community together. So we did that. And then in the summer, Gustavo started developing these outdoor platforms because we felt like, opening indoors is just, that didn't feel right. And we're like, there's ways to work around it in Austin. So we help with engineer and community, like there's these individual dance platforms that are socially distant from one another. So we have 10 platforms and a stage. So then the teacher teaches in the stage and then people come with the mask, they can take them off at the platform and they can dance. And then we had events too with music where also it was like little pad. So you can be like 4 people at maximum. So you come with your little family or bubble.
Oh, the pods. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Pod. Yeah. The pub, all these new, there's so many new terminologies,
Yes. I'll put a picture of those platforms in the show notes for everyone to see, because that was so inventive, I thought. And, one thing that you should know, if you don't know Monica and Gustavo personally, they have these big, huge ideas. And whenever they throw them out there, they just happen. I mean, I know there's work that goes on behind the scenes, but it's like all these people come together and are like, yeah, we're going to make this happen. And it's amazing to watch, because I feel like so many people kind of talk about doing things, but they actually do them. And every time Claudio and I would bring the kids to Esquina, there's something new to see. Like, oh, we've built this entire grill area. We've built these platforms. And if you could see the pictures before of what this place was and how they transformed it, it was this old, falling down church that had just fallen into disrepair. And now it's just this vibrant, brightly colored, thriving center of East Austin. It's beautiful. So, and the platforms, I felt like, were just kind of the latest iteration of that.
Yeah, I know people were joking that it was like, man, the governor should have asked, Esquina Tango how to reopen the economy, and because the city did not really do anything.
I mean, I feel like everyone was caught so off guard. And there was that time in March where it was like, is this just going to be a week or two where we all kind of hunker down? And then it became longer. But honestly, I feel like maybe part of that is being from Argentina, in a way of constantly having to pivot and rethink and reconfigure. Whereas here, we're so used to things kind of always going a certain way and it being in the 10-year plan, that once something is outside of that, we're like, oh shit, I don't know what to do. But for y'all, and I mean, it's a little stereotypical, right? But I feel like I've seen that with Claudio, that you roll with the punches so much easier, because that's just everyday life in Buenos Aires a lot of the time. So
exactly. I mean, when you come from a third world country, you are not just be like, oh, I never expect, like, kind of my motto right now is like, you gotta keep reinventing yourself. And some faults are harder than others. So I'm not saying that, oh, whatever is, but yeah, you gotta keep pushing through. And honestly, we are very lucky. We have an amazing supporting community that has really been there, and it's symbiotic. We're there for you, you're there for us. So they're amazingly supportive, but it is kind of like an invention. Like, you're gonna build something, maybe you don't have all the right tools, but you can still figure it out. One way, you use duct tape.
Right. Duct tape it together. I mean, creativity, right?
Exactly.
Making it work.
And yeah, being flexible. You have to continue being flexible. It gets harder sometimes because we closed down, we went online, then we figured out this amazing outdoor stuff. And then now all of a sudden there was some, neighbor that was not happy with the music outside. And then the city said, oh yeah, you're breaking this rule. And now the city's like, sorry, you're frustrated, but you cannot do music outside because you're breaking this rule. And we're like, well, the rule did not really have in mind that there was going to be a pandemic in place. Is there an exception? No, sorry. And you're like, first frustrated with the city, but then it's like, it's demoralizing.
Yeah.
But then at the same time, through it's like, no, we got to figure out another way because we got to keep going. And I feel even stronger that it's for us, but also like when we were having the other platforms, the musicians were playing for the first time in 8 months. And I was like, you know what? The city is not doing anything for these musicians. Let's figure it out and we can do it. Find another spot, do something, but we got to keep going.
It is essential, like you said. That is part of surviving, not just shelter and food and water, but these things that make it feel like it's worth it to keep pushing.
Well, they say that in the darkest time, art thrives. And there's a reason, because we, as humans, we need that connection with the arts to connect to the most primal things, to connect to humanity, to give us a reason to keep being alive, and yeah, and we are more important now in a way to give people like a little window of hope.
Yeah.
And it's been hard with a lot of people in isolation, a lot of people that live by themselves, that their community was to come here. That was their community, that was their outlet.
So shifting gears a little bit, you started Esquina before you had kids, and then you had your kids when you were kind of already in the middle of this. How did that shift?
Well, this is the deal. Sometimes a lot of people, we think about like, oh, I don't want to have kids, or the kids will interrupt my lifestyle and this and that. And then I see my mom and a lot of our moms that were in college, that were doing this, that were doing that. And it's like, you have your children, and then children become part of your life. And children are part of what you do. They will change some things for sure. I mean, instead of, going out till 6 a.m. to, in Buenos Aires to dancing tango. I was having babies. So definitely it's not that life doesn't change with children, but they become part of your life. And whatever you're doing, they're going to be part of it. And that's what happened with our children. Beto and Alma, Esquina is their big sibling, and they slept at Esquina while we had events while they were babies. They celebrated, they met everybody, they helped. You adjust, you teach with a baby in your belly, and you keep going. And honestly, I feel this is good for babies. Mm-hmm. I love my kids, and my kids are a priority, but my kids know that mom has a life and has a job and has passion, and she's a person, and they will have their own stuff too. So it's important for them to see, I don't know, you continue figuring out life with your kids, and your kids will be part of what you do. It's funny because I feel like school is very important, but sometimes a lot of my drive behind a lot of what I do, I'm like, where did I learn this? And honestly, it was my parents. My parents had their own business, a very different one, but I grew up watching them, call the shots and open an office and do their work here and do this and do that. And I feel like that was an amazing lesson for me. And now that's what my kids like. Even if they didn't go to school, they were like hammering the platforms and reopening Esquina. And I'm like, well, what an amazing lesson they can have,
Yeah, completely. Too. I think, again, there's a cultural difference there. Not that there aren't people here that incorporate their kids into their work, but every time we go to Buenos Aires to visit Claudio's family, I see so much more of the kids being directly involved in the parents' lives. They're out and about and up late and part of everything. And I think Americans, we tend to want them to have so much structure and so much, like, they have their schedule, they have their bedtime, this is their room, this is our room. Like, we want it all nice and separate. And so then it can be really tricky for us to try to incorporate those things, but it feels more natural in Argentina.
Yeah, maybe it is a cultural thing. Definitely, I think kids need to have an amount of hours of sleep and things like that. But when Beto started having his birthday parties, that he was able to start saying what he wanted, he started to grow up. He said he was like, I don't want like a short 2-hour party, mom. Like, I want like a real party. Here it was like, you have the birthday party and you show up at 2:00 and then you have all the organized, and usually our party is like, the cake, Monica, the cake. Okay, let's do the cake. I'm like, it's a party. Like, let them have fun. They don't want to organize activities. And I'm not judging everybody.
No, it's just different.
Whatever. It's just different. Part of what we do in our events is that it is very open to the community. One of our volunteers for a while, she called me up and she was like, hey, I just moved into town. I have my son. I'm a single mom. I want to volunteer, but can I bring him? And I'm like, sure, that's fine. He can just live right next to my son,
Yeah, right.
She's become a great friend. And at the beginning, she had just moved to Austin, and it was a lifesaver for her.
Yeah.
She made a lot of friends. She could bring her son. It was a very healthy environment. And again, she still needed to get out. She still needed to meet people for her own well-being, but then her son could be there. And that was great. Don't get me wrong. I love my time for myself too. When my son was born, at first we would bring him everywhere. We would bring him to the milongas, have him sleep in the corner, everywhere. When my daughter was born at some point, and then I started going out without the kids, I was like, that's why people go out without the kids. Like, I understand.
Yeah.
There's a very different sensation if you're out without kids. And I think it's totally great to be able to do both.
Yes, definitely. That kind of leads into my next question is, you live there on the property right next door to Esquina itself. Does that ever get to you? Like, when you're having big events and lots of people over, do you feel like you need to kind of draw a line of no one's coming in the house, or is that another cultural thing?
No, yes. I think at the beginning it was kind of like, oh, everybody, yes, the house. And then at some point I was like, okay, everybody out. And then when I was pregnant, then at some point I was like, there's a fence that can, we all need healthy boundaries. It is harder for me to sometimes have my private life, but I like to disappear too. I need my space. And I feel like with the years, people have learned much more to respect that. But at the same time, I still feel lucky because I still every now and then get somebody who calls me and drops by. Even when my kids were babies, like when you are a new mom, that's one of the harder things. You're like alone in the house. You know it, right?
Yeah.
It can be intense and it can be really hard. And, I had always people around me and I was very lucky to be able to have a lot of support and community, and not feel just me and babies, and I could have adult conversations.
Yeah. I think I had the opposite experience. I remember when the twins were born and I was like, where is everyone? I just had kids. And I think we tend to go so well, at least in my family and my little part of the American culture. There's so many aspects of the American culture, but it's like, I don't want to bother you. So I'm just going to stay way far away. I'm going to give you your space. And I was like, I just had two human beings. I have no idea how to take care of them. I'm lonely. Someone come over here, That's why I married a Latino, I guess.
Right. That's right. Yeah. I mean, and it is hard too, because how people here live like more isolated already, like if you live in the suburbs and stuff like that. And yeah, I mean, and it's always going to be a little bit of that, finding the balance between being with them, being present, but then we are also people and we need to keep evolving. We need to keep finding what gives us pleasure and what connects us with other adults. And that's something that is outside being a mom. That's just being a person.
Feels like it's so much healthier for us and for them to see that and to get the benefits of that we feel like we can give back to them when we have done something for ourselves as well.
Yeah, I mean, even between the middle of the March and April and May, where we were like in the craziest lockdown, I found a teacher and I was working out every day with a Zoom. And my kid, I was like, give me this hour or else leave me alone. I need my workout, I need my things, and it's important.
As a dancer, do you feel like you need that physical activity every day? That's what I'm like. If I don't get my heart rate up, I feel like every day in some way, it doesn't have to be dancing, but I'm so cranky. Is it the same for you?
Yeah, I need it very badly. Yeah, I need to burn the energy. I need to move my body. People say, oh, dancing is just fun. It's so fun. I was like, no, it's not fun. It's necessary to staying alive. Like all the hormones and the things that movement moves in your body and the chemicals in your brain makes you a healthier person all the way around.
Yeah. I mean, there's all kinds of studies that show that, but you can feel it and it just changes your mood instantly.
Yeah. I mean, I understand that it's hard. It's hard to find the time. My silver lining is that we're happily divorced too. And we do a great co-parenting with Gustavo. That has given him much more space that otherwise it's been very different with that in a good way.
I think so. Y'all are a great model for how to make that work because you still run Esquina together. I'm sure, again, there's behind the scenes stuff that we don't see, but it's such a great example for their kids of still coming together. Like they're still a family.
Yeah.
They're still a family. It's just in a different way. And they still come together and have this common goal and kind of go apart and co-parent. It's really beautiful. I'm sure it's taken a lot of work. I don't mean to downplay it.
No, of course. But honestly, our relationship, not a lot of work, whether you're married or not.
Of course.
So the first year was rough but that was like 7 years ago. And there's not a lot of behind the scenes because we're so like, if we're having a discussion of like, I guess we shouldn't do it here. Like we're very open. But honestly, at some point we kind of click. First, you got to rise above your own, I want to fight sort of mode that happens sometimes because of the kids. And it's a win-win. Like, honestly, he's a great friend. He has my back. He's so supportive. And we fight like anybody else would fight. We know each other very well. And we both want to be there for the kids. The kids are at an age that they need us both. Yeah. We're different, but they need a mom and a dad. And it's great. From me, they learn something. From Gustavo, they learn some things. We listen to each other. And honestly, during this COVID thing, it's been great too, because with the lack of a lot of social life, at least we still are friends. So he'll be like, hey, I'm barbecuing. Do you want to come over?
Right.
I'm like, I want to see the Johnson lights. He was like, okay, let's go. And we've been able to do fun things as friends and still being with the kids. And all we want is to raise our children. And I have my house. He has his.
I mean, there's times that I feel jealous of that. I'm not going to lie. Like, can we work this out? A few months. I don't know if it's really true, but it reminds me of in the movie Frida with Salma Hayek, and they had that 2 houses with the bridge in the back. Like Diego had his house and she had hers. I'm like, they were on to something.
There is something to that. I even remember the very beginning of our separation, speaking of being a mom, and it was right when I was done nursing. I was pregnant, nursing, and then we separated. And the first few times that I started going out by myself, and I was like, oh, I am a woman, like.
Yeah.
And it's very important, whatever situation it is, for us to find our spaces to be ourselves. To take out the mom hat, you got to take off the mom hat.
Oh, yeah. I mean, you got to put it on sometimes, but it's got to come off at some point.
And not to judge, but I feel guys generally, I mean, there's other cases, especially with fathers that have to be single parents. But when there's a mom around, guys have an easier time taking off the dad hat than mom sometimes. And I'm like, let me learn from that. How do you do that?
That sucker just slides right off for men. I want to ask you one more question about dancing before we jump into the lightning round and wrap up. But I think a lot about how being a dancer is so different from so many other forms of artistry, like being a painter or a writer or, a violinist, because your body is your instrument, like we talked about at the beginning. And as we get older, our instrument changes and gets a little out of tune and can sometimes get in the way of expressing ourselves. How has dancing changed for you as you're getting older? Not like we're 105, but our bodies, we can't kick quite as high as we used to, maybe. How's it changed for you?
I'm going to take the high ground. I have a friend of mine that I dance with, and he always tells me, Monica, you're just a seasoned dancer. There's something with you that, like, the way you feel is nothing like a lot of other people. And to be honest, I may not be able to kick as high, but there is like some amazingly grounding and feel more powerful with time. That when you're young, it's different. It's great. It's like you can do all these tricks, but there's something more stronger and I don't know, powerful as far as like being the seasoned dancer, that you have that sensitivity to the level that only time will allow. It's kind of like the wise old lady,
Yeah.
And I see it. That's another thing that I think is awesome about Esquina and about dancing and about partner dancing is that some of the ladies that come to dance to Esquina, they're in their 80s.
Wow.
And they're amazing dancers and they're still dancing. Yeah, maybe like they don't come out as late as anymore, you know what I mean? Or maybe they don't dance as long, but they have the beautiful grace.
Mm-hmm.
And actually, that's something that we're going to be lucky enough as we age to have this beautiful physical grace that dance gives us, right? So yeah, we have to take care of our bodies, just not to slam it. Like my niece now sometimes will be like, all right, Monica, that concrete was hard. Like I have to... When I was practicing for some performance, my hips are like, all right, already. Thank you very much. That was horrible.
Yeah, they let you know. They're talking to you.
They let you know, like, thank you. Be nice to me. This is the thing. Our body is our instrument, but also the body is what gives me the biggest pleasures in my life, right? It's like, it's been so amazing with me. So I got to be nice to my body. We all have to age. That's no way around it because I love being alive.
Yeah.
And what most beautiful way to age than being able to dance through life. I don't know. It's beautiful. It's a beautiful thing that you can keep doing all your life.
Yeah, it's still something that you need. That doesn't go away at any age, I don't think. And to be able to do it is
it's like
a blessing.
Libido goes away because you're older? No.
Yeah. I think you make a good point, though, about the seasoned dancer. That's what I feel like as well. If I'm at an audition or something and I may not be able to do something that's outwardly as impressive as the 20-year-old next to me, but I feel ironically like I'm a much better dancer than I was back then because of everything that you mentioned, like something deeper inside. I don't know if it's more in touch with your emotions or more life experience or the grounding that you talked about, but there's no comparison. I look at tapes of myself back then and I'm so much more stiff and something. I guess just being comfortable in your own body.
Sometimes there's the mentality of like, I'm going to I'm going to do this and I'm going to learn it in a year. Or like tango, people say like, how fast can I learn tango? I'm like, you can learn it fast, but then to really like let it in, sink to your body and your soul, it will take time. And you will see the difference dancing with somebody that can do all the tricks and learn it really fast to like, I can dance with a gentleman in his 60s or 70s in Buenos Aires. And he will be like you can, like there's something much more amazing to dance with that person, It's like lovemaking.
I was thinking, there's definitely a connection. And that's one of the fun things about partner dancing. Like for me, being married, is like you get to sleep around without sleeping around in a way, like you feel the physical connection.
Well, I always joke and I tell people lovers are temporary, but dance partners are forever. Because even as a single woman, I'd rather have more dance partners. Much cleaner.
Much cleaner, yeah. Let's clean up. I love it.
No morning after, No,
you have to cuddle.
The makeup, then like I run into you at the dance floor next time. No, I always joke in class, it's the best 3-minute love affair, like.
So good. All right, let's jump into the lightning round real quick, and then I'm going to feed my kids, I guess. All right, the first one is, what's your effing desk? Your creative area that's only yours. And it might be physical or a mental thing.
My effing desk. Dancing in the kitchen.
I like it.
Yes.
What is keeping you sane right now?
What is keeping me sane right now? Honestly, there's two things. One is finding physical activities. For example, I signed up to this boot camp. And the other thing, to be honest, is I continue connecting with people to have conversations. And sometimes it's very easy to get trapped in a bubble of like, it's going on in this life. But it keeps me sane to talk to people and just opens my head for perspective and give me ideas and listening to what they're doing. And I just think it's a healthy exercise to keep connecting with people, talking and so forth.
Yeah, definitely. What is your best life hack?
Okay, what is a hack?
Kind of like a shortcut, something that makes your life easier.
Makes my life easier. Music. If I'm in whatever, like I turn on the music, it kind of like will switch my, or going outside.
For sure. I can see both of those. If you could do anything besides what you're doing now, what would it be?
Be on the beach, laying around.
Oh, yeah. What is the best advice you've ever gotten?
When life gets tough, you always have to learn to negotiate. At the end of the day, you have to negotiate always. You have to work things out.
It's especially useful now, isn't it?
Yes.
What about the worst advice?
The worst advice. Well, I know that it just feels wrong when somebody tells you like what you're doing is wrong and you should stop doing it. And your gut is telling you what, like trust your guts,
Yeah. It feels like a judgment kind of too, I think.
Right. Or I could do them better sort of thing. And I'm like, then open your own space.
Right. Do it yourself. You can do it better.
You know how to do it. Go ahead.
Okay, I'm curious to see if you know what this is. Imposter syndrome is...
Imposter syndrome.
Do you know that word, that term?
I mean, an imposter is somebody who pretends to be somebody else.
Yeah.
I don't know what an imposter syndrome is.
I have been thinking of this ever since I was getting our questions ready. And I'm like, I'm willing to bet that she doesn't know it. And I love that you don't know what it is because... Again, I think it's an Argentino thing. So imposter syndrome is the theory that successful people have this underlying feeling like they're a fake, like they don't really deserve it. People are going to figure out that they're an imposter. And supposedly most successful people have it. Even at the very top, it could be like Steven Spielberg is like, I'm not really that great and people are going to figure it out. But it makes perfect sense. That someone from Argentina would be like, no, I don't get that.
Oh my God. Yeah, no, I never heard it. So what was the question in imposter syndrome?
Is
the question?
Like a fill in the blank.
Oh, I had to say what it was.
So to you, it's non-existent.
It's not existent. I mean, and to be honest, one of my superpowers, not to be conceited, but I feel like we are very authentic. being authentic is something that we are naturally. So I feel like everything we have built has come from that place. I do feel very fortunately to have built very authentic relationships. Like a lot of the relationships that we build and even of people that amazingly support us have come from a very authentic place of a connection and just a real relationship. And I feel that's also what has made our family, our Esquina family also very strong because people feel they are legitimately connected, not just like, hey, what do they want from me?
Yeah. Okay. What was the last thing you read?
Well, honestly, speaking of being a mom, I had not read for a very long time.
Oh, yeah.
I blame it on being a mom and the nonprofit. And actually, the quarantine gave me back my reading. And I started reading novels, like historical novels and just kind of fun fantasy novels. And then when we reopened outside, again, it kind of was put on a hold. It's just really hard to navigate the reading and Esquina sometimes when it's full. So now I need to get back to it. So anyway, but I still read in Spanish. It's still like when I read, I love, it's my relaxing time. I love,
Yeah. If you could have a song played every time you entered a room, what would it be?
So many.
I know. Would it be like a tango or something else?
Honestly, I love tango music, but the music that I hear usually is much more upbeat music for my own personal life. Either like fun, uplifting songs or salsa or merengue or Afro beats. It will make me move. And I love tango, but honestly, tango connects to this more like soul, like that is different when you're dancing it. But when you're just playing it, I need something.
Something to lift you up. All right, last one. What is next on your bucket list?
Trying to figure out this crazy year. My bucket list and try to reinvent ourselves one more time. 2021, here we go. Yeah, my bucket list. Now some people say like, what would you do? And people are, well, I would travel. The first thing I would travel is like, the first thing I want to do is just touch everybody without worrying about it. Like,
I know.
No worry about giving hugs. Next, my bucket list is like hug every person I see.
I think my first guest, Ellie, said that, the same thing. She's like, I just want to hug someone. That's it. That is my giant bucket list wish, a hug. Well, thank you so much for coming on the show. It was really nice just to have a nice, real conversation, not revolved around kids or anything else.
No, it's really nice to talk. And this is one of the things when you said one of the great things that, for me keeps me sane is talking to people is that because we're close and we don't have events, like I feel like if I see somebody, and I know this was an interview, but I feel like there's much more in-depth conversation that I'm having because usually my life is like, I'm running out and let me say hi to this and let me get this and I have to clean this and I got to change the water. And I'm always like hosting, but I'm easily distracted. So now it's like, I feel I've had much more amazing conversations because there's no time to talk and it's only one person at a time. I'm not seeing 30 people and just trying to be a butterfly around them. Everybody.
Yes. Yeah. You have time to sit and soak it in. I like it.
Yeah. It was nice talking to you too.
So I talked to my husband, Claudio, about my interview with Monica right after we finished. And I said, I was right. She did not know what imposter syndrome was. Can you believe it? And of course, being him, he was like, yes, of course, I believe this. We do not have this, which was sort of infuriatingly refreshing. And after a while, I just said, why do we have to overcomplicate things so much? We, meaning Americans / mostly me. And he sort of raised his eyebrows and was like, you are asking me these? Like, this is what I've been telling you for 16 years or however long we've been together. We are not imposters. We're right where we need to be, whatever it is that we are doing. And the rest is cooked up by who knows what. Bullshit. Thank you, Monica. Thank you, Claudio. I reluctantly say you were right. To find out more about Esquina Tango, you can go to their website at esquinatangoaustin.com. I'll put a link in the show notes if you're having trouble spelling that. And I'll also throw in some pictures of the platforms that they built, as well as a petition that you can sign if you're local here in Austin to encourage the city to let them have outdoor music again. While I've got you here, I want to remind you to subscribe to My Effing Desk if you haven't already. Wherever it is that you get your podcasts, just click subscribe. That way, each time an episode comes out, it goes right to your device and you don't have to worry about missing anything. We are also on YouTube now at My Effing Desk Podcast. So check that out if you would rather get your podcasts on YouTube. Apparently that's a thing. Who knew? And if you're enjoying the show, we can always use your reviews and ratings. Much, much appreciated. And it goes a long way to help new listeners find the show. Thanks so much. For more goodies, check out myeffingdeskpodcast.com, including a listener survey coming very soon. And you can also find us on Facebook and Instagram at My Effing Desk Podcast, Twitter at My Effing Desk Pod, as well as TikTok and Pinterest, My Effing Desk Podcast. That's going to do it. Hang in there, everybody. Keep doing your thing, whatever it is that you need. We'll see you next time. And hey, go shake some shit up.